For months, a man called her at work. Sometimes he said he loved her. Sometimes he described exactly what she'd been wearing that day. And sometimes he told her what he was going to do to her. She started taking karate classes. She thought about buying a gun. She told her mother about one call that terrified her more than the rest, when the voice on the other end said, "When I get you alone, I will cut you up into bits so no one will ever find you." Then, on May 28, 1980, he made good on his promise. Dorothy Jane Scott was 32 years old, a single mother. She lived with her aunt in Stanton, California, and worked as a secretary at a small shop in Anaheim. Her parents lived nearby, and they watched her 4-year-old son while she worked. By all accounts, Dorothy was quiet, kind, a devout Christian who didn't drink, didn't party, and rarely dated. She preferred to spend her evenings at home with her boy. She wasn't the kind of person who attracted trouble, but in the fall of 1979, trouble found her. It started with phone calls at work. An unidentified man. He knew things about her, where she'd been, who she'd spoken to, what she was wearing. He described her daily routines with disturbing accuracy. Some calls were almost gentle. He told her he loved her. He spoke as if they had a relationship. But Dorothy had no idea who he was. She later told her mother that she recognized the voice, but couldn't place it. That detail is chilling, because it means her stalker was someone she knew, someone in her life, someone close enough to watch her every move. Other calls were violent, possessive, threatening. One day, he called and told her to go outside. When she did, she found a single dead red rose on the windshield of her car. A dead rose. Not a gift. A warning. As the weeks turned to months, the calls escalated. Dorothy was frightened. She considered buying a handgun. She enrolled in karate classes. She told her mother everything, every threat, every detail, every word the voice on the phone had said. But she couldn't identify him. And in 1980, there was no caller ID. No way to trace a call unless the person stayed on the line long enough. Her stalker never did. May 28, 1980. A Wednesday. Dorothy attended a staff meeting at work that evening. During the meeting, she noticed her coworker, Conrad Bostron, didn't look right. He had a red, swollen mark on his arm. Dorothy and another coworker, Pam Head, insisted on taking him to the emergency room. On the way to UCI Medical Center in Orange, they stopped briefly at Dorothy's parents' house so she could check on her son. While there, she changed her scarf, swapping a black one for a red one. That detail would matter later. At the hospital, doctors determined Conrad had been bitten by a black widow spider. They treated him and discharged him around 11 p.m. with a prescription. Dorothy offered to bring the car around so Conrad wouldn't have to walk far. She used the restroom, then headed out to the parking lot alone. Pam and Conrad waited at the exit. A few minutes later, they saw Dorothy's car, a white 1973 Toyota station wagon, racing toward them. Its headlights blinded them. They waved their arms trying to get her attention. But the car didn't slow down. It sped past them and took a sharp right out of the parking lot. They couldn't see who was driving. At first, they assumed Dorothy had gotten an emergency call about her son and left in a hurry. But after a couple of hours with no word from her, they called her parents. Her parents hadn't heard from her either. Dorothy Jane Scott was reported missing. At 4:30 in the morning, Santa Ana police found Dorothy's white Toyota station wagon in an alleyway 10 miles from the hospital. It was engulfed in flames. Dorothy was not inside. Neither was anyone else. The fire was clearly intentional. But what happened between the hospital parking lot and that burning car in an alley? How did Dorothy's stalker get into the parking lot, get to her car, and drive it away, all while her coworkers stood just yards away? Had he been following her all night? From the work meeting, to her parents' house, to the hospital? The answer, almost certainly, is yes. 2 weeks after Dorothy vanished, the Santa Ana Register ran a story about her disappearance. That same day, June 12, 1980, the newspaper's editorial desk received a phone call. A man's voice said, "I killed her. I killed Dorothy Scott. She was my love. I caught her cheating with another man. She denied having someone else. I killed her." The editor, Pat Riley, listened carefully. Police were called. And here's what made investigators believe this was real. The caller knew 2 details that had never been released to the public. He knew that Conrad Bostron had been bitten by a spider that night. And he knew that Dorothy had changed her scarf to a red one before arriving at the hospital. Only someone who had been there, who had been watching her that entire evening, could have known those things. The caller also claimed Dorothy had called him from the hospital that night. But Pam Head said she was with Dorothy the entire time and she never made a phone call. Which means either the caller was lying about that one detail, or there was a brief moment, perhaps when Dorothy used the restroom, when she was alone. And he was already there. 1 week after Dorothy disappeared, her parents received their first call. "Are you related to Dorothy Scott?" "Yes." "I've got her." Click. For the next 4 years, the calls continued. Almost always on Wednesdays. Almost always when Dorothy's mother, Vera, was home alone. The caller would say just enough to twist the knife, "I have her," or "I killed her." Then he'd hang up before the call could be traced. The police tapped the line. They waited. But the caller seemed to know exactly how long he could stay on before being found. He was precise, controlled, methodical. When Dorothy's father, Jacob, started answering the phone, the calls abruptly stopped. The stalker, it seemed, was only interested in tormenting her mother. Then, in August of 1984, came the discovery that changed everything and nothing. August 6, 1984. A construction crew working near Santa Ana Canyon Road found bones, human and animal, roughly 30 feet from the roadside, in a remote, brushy area. The remains were partially charred. A brush fire had swept through the site 2 years earlier, in 1982, further damaging the evidence. But 2 items survived: a turquoise ring and a watch. Dorothy's mother recognized both immediately. The watch had stopped at 12:30 a.m. on May 29, 1980, roughly 1 hour after her co-workers last saw her car speeding away. On August 14th, dental records confirmed what the family already knew. The remains belonged to Dorothy Jane Scott. She had been there, in that remote spot, for over 4 years. The autopsy could not determine a cause of death. The remains were too degraded. Whatever he did to her, whoever he was, he took that secret with him. And then, after the news broke that Dorothy's body had been found, the phone calls started again. "Is Dorothy home?" Click. Dorothy Jane Scott's murder remains unsolved. No arrest has ever been made. The man who stalked her, killed her, and tormented her family for years was never identified. Her mother, Vera, lived with those phone calls until she passed away in 2002, 22 years of not knowing. Her 4-year-old son grew up without his mother. The Orange County Sheriff's Department still considers this an active case. But the voice on the phone, the voice Dorothy said she recognized but couldn't place, has never been heard again. Some cases grow cold. This one never stopped calling.